Picture this, a world on the edge of peace, yet brimming with tension. The air smells faintly of iron and cold stone. Silence dominates, thick enough to taste. But beneath it, a storm brews. A shadow is forming, slow but relentless. Its name, Glaurung. Morgoth had returned, not openly but in secret. He carried treasures beyond imagining, the Silmarils, and with them the weight of old grudges. The Noldor were not far behind, led by Fëanor, fierce and unrelenting. They burned for revenge, for justice, for what was theirs. The world was young, raw and dangerous. Morgoth's strength alone was insufficient to confront the Noldor directly. Yet he was cunning, patient, calculating. So he fortified himself within Angband, a fortress of iron and shadow in the far north. Outside, the Noldor pressed, sharp and brilliant, but they could not crush his walls. Inside, Morgoth brooded, powerless to leave, yet unwilling to yield. The first century passed like this, a long standoff known as the Siege of Angband. Few battles shook the land, but none ended the impasse. Morgoth's armies of orcs and lesser creatures failed to match the discipline and strength of the elves. For decades, the stalemate endured and Morgoth's fury simmered. Then, a thought struck him. A thought darker than orcs. He would create something entirely new. Something monstrous. Something that would shift the balance of power forever. Not a soldier, not a weapon to hold, but a creature designed to terrify, dominate, and manipulate. He would create the first dragon. It took decades. Not the quick strike of war, but slow, patient creation. From raw matter and malice, Morgoth shaped his prototype. Something born to move like fire and shadow, to crush and to mesmerize. When it emerged, it was still young, still growing, yet even in its infancy, it commanded fear. This was Glaurung, the father of dragons, the first of the Uroloki, fire drakes of the north. He did not soar, he crawled, but the ground itself trembled beneath him. The first sighting of Glaurung sent the elves fleeing. Fields blackened, rivers of panic flowed, horses bolted, villages scattered. The young dragon defiled the land not out of need, but out of instinct, out of power testing itself. Yet not all stood in fear. Fingon, prince of Hithlum, saw the creature and did not falter. He gathered archers, mounted riders, and surrounded the young terror. The dragon struck back with claws, heat, and fury. But he was not yet fully armored. Darts wounded him. Pain taught him caution. With a roar that shook the mountains, Glaurung retreated back into the iron shadows of Angband. Morgoth was displeased, not because the dragon failed, but because it had been revealed too soon. He kept Glaurung caged for centuries, allowing him to grow stronger, wiser, deadlier. Patience was key. When Glaurung emerged again, the world would tremble beneath him, and the world did tremble. 2 centuries later, during the Battle of Sudden Flame, Glaurung returned. The ground burned, the sky glowed with fire, and the armies of Morgoth surged. Orcs poured from Angband. Balrogs led the vanguard, and Glaurung led them all, a living siege engine, unstoppable and terrifying. The first thing to understand about Glaurung is this: his power was not just strength. It was weight, mass, fire, destruction. He crushed the front lines of elves and men with his sheer presence. Towers fell, cavalry scattered. Heroes who would survive countless battles, COWERED. But strength alone did not make him unique. Glaurung had eyes that could bind, eyes that could see into minds, find doubt, and twist it into paralysis. Consider Túrin, a warrior, a hero, brave, unyielding, unstoppable by most standards. Yet when Glaurung looked at him, steel paused mid-swing. The sword in his hand hung frozen. His legs refused to move. His mind betrayed him. A glance from the dragon was enough to seize control of a man's will. The dragon spoke not with sound but with gaze, and when he did speak, his words were honey-coated traps. He planted doubt, guilt and fear, bending even strong minds to his will. Later, Glaurung would target Niënor, Túrin's sister. Here, his cunning reached a new level. He erased her memory, not partially but completely. Her identity vanished. She became a ghost in her own life, unaware of herself or the world she had known. This wasn't mere cruelty. This was calculated manipulation. Glaurung understood motivations. He read desires. He found the exact pressure points and exploited them. Some wonder if he could see the future. Perhaps not, but he acted with such precision that outcomes often aligned perfectly with his intent. Even his death would not undo his power. He carried forward a legacy that shaped destinies. By targeting minds, he orchestrated tragedies that no sword could have achieved alone. Yet, he was not invincible. Beneath all that impenetrable scale lay a weakness, his soft underbelly. A mortal could strike there, and one did. Túrin, hiding in a chasm, pierced the armor that even Morgoth could not perfect. Despite this, Glaurung's influence did not end. He was the progenitor of dragons, the first of a terrible lineage. Some dragons that followed were said to be his children, others spiritual heirs. They inherited fire, cunning, and greed. They shared his strength, his intelligence, his hypnotic abilities. Some learned to fly, some learned to hoard gold, but none matched the original's mastery of manipulation. Think of Smaug. He sleeps on treasure. He is clever and dangerous, but Smaug lacks the mind that could rewrite a man's destiny without touching him. Glaurung was more than destruction. He was control, influence, strategy incarnate. The dragon's brilliance lay into things, raw power and intellect. Together, they reshaped the battlefield and human hearts. Where he walked, roads shifted. Where he gazed, courage crumbled. The shadow of Glaurung did not merely frighten, it redirected fate's dot and the world remembered. The siege of Angband ended. The battle of Sudden Flames scarred history. Glaurung's emergence was a turning point, a moment where even heroes were tested beyond strength. By the end of his life, he had proven that a mind paired with power could be deadlier than brute force alone. Morgoth had created a weapon, not just a beast, but a master of fear and manipulation. Glaurung was the first shadow to walk the land, a prototype for all dragons yet to come. And as he fell, the world had already changed. Even in death, Glaurung's presence lingered, not in the flesh, but in the consequences of his actions. Every life he touched, every mind he bent, every battlefield he reshaped. The effects rippled outward. Túrin is the perfect example. A hero by birth, skilled beyond measure. Yet the dragon's gaze turned him into a pawn of fate. One look, one word, and he abandoned his friends, wandered into danger, and unknowingly marched toward tragedy. Glaurung understood the subtleties of human fear better than most humans. Themselves, pride, love, anger, guilt, desire. He saw the threads that tied a person to their choices, and he tugged with precision. Túrin's self-loathing, born of Glaurung's subtle words, became a weapon against him. Even the strongest minds faltered under his influence. Then there was Niënor, a sister, innocent and unprepared. The dragon stripped her identity entirely. A blank slate, lost to herself, wandering blindly into the consequences of the schemes Glaurung orchestrated. Her story became a testament to his intellect. Raw power alone could terrify, but subtle manipulation could destroy. And yet, these were not accidents. Every action was a calculated strike, a domino carefully tipped by the dragon's design. Morgoth had created not just a weapon of war, but a master of psychological warfare. The fire, the scales, the weight, they were tools. The mind, however, was the true weapon. Even the elves, with centuries of wisdom and unmatched skill, struggled to anticipate him. Fingon had once faced the young, inexperienced Glaurung and survived. But that encounter revealed the raw potential, the foreshadowing of what was to come. The dragon would not merely attack armies, he would manipulate hearts, minds, and destinies. By the time of the Battle of Sudden Flame, Glaurung had matured. The lands of Beleriand burned beneath his presence. The armies of Morgoth surged forward, led by the Golden Dragon. Orcs multiplied like shadows, Balrogs strode beside him, and the earth shook with the rhythm of his march. No fortress, no hero, no strategy could withstand his full power. Even the most stalwart defenders felt their courage waver under the gaze of the Father of Dragons. Elves fell, men scattered, alliances strained to breaking points. It is crucial to understand that Glaurung was not merely a beast. He was intelligent, adaptive, strategic. He anticipated attacks, predicted movements, and exploited weaknesses. Every roar, every hiss, every fiery breath served a purpose, and yet, he could also terrify without action. The sheer sight of him, scales glinting like molten gold, eyes burning with intelligence, was enough to turn armies into fleeing mobs. The psychological warfare he waged often achieved more than his physical attacks ever could. Glaurung's abilities were unprecedented. His fire could scorch entire battlefields. His tail could crush stone and flesh alike. His voice, whether a roar or a whisper, could bend the minds of the proudest warriors. Yet, like all great power, it came with a flaw. Beneath the scales, the soft underbelly remained vulnerable. A hero could exploit it, a rare chance, but enough to remind the world that even legends are mortal. Still, this weakness did not diminish his terror. Glaurung reshaped the strategies of war, forcing his enemies to fight differently. He was the apex predator in every sense, intellectually, physically, and psychologically. And beyond the battlefield, his legacy was immortal. He fathered dragons. Whether biologically or symbolically, Glaurung's influence shaped generations of fire drakes. His brood, terrifying and cunning, carried fragments of his power into the next era. Even Smaug, centuries later, mirrored Glaurung's traits: greed, intelligence, cunning, and hypnotic influence. But unlike Glaurung, Smaug could fly. Glaurung was earthbound, crawling across the lands of Middle-earth, yet no less devastating. He manipulated minds, orchestrated tragedy, and redefined what a dragon could be. Consider the broader implications. Morgoth had unleashed a force capable of direct destruction and indirect manipulation. Dragons were no longer merely beasts of fire and claw. They were psychological weapons, capable of altering the course of wars and the fate of entire peoples. Glaurung's intellect set him apart from other creatures of the First Age. Orcs followed orders blindly. Balrogs were destructive but predictable. Glaurung was unpredictable. He adapted, anticipated, and exploited. He did not just act on instinct, he calculated. Every step, every attack, every manipulation served a goal. This is what made him terrifying. Not just the fire, the strength, the size, but the mind behind it, the strategy, the foresight, the ability to see not only what was in front of him, but also what lay in the hearts of his enemies. Even when facing heroes like Túrin, Glaurung's power was evident. He did not merely fight, he controlled. He halted an attack mid-motion, froze a warrior with a gaze, and turned the strongest minds against themselves. It was a level of control that few in Middle-earth could even comprehend, and the ripple effects were immense. Families were shattered, alliances strained, entire regions fell into chaos. Glaurung's presence influenced every outcome, every battle, every decision. Yet his story also reminds us of limits. Despite his overwhelming power, his underbelly remained a vulnerability. Túrin's final strike into that soft flesh proved that even the most terrifying creature is not invincible. But consider this, Glaurung's true death did not end his impact. The tragedies he set in motion continued. The children of Túrin were bound by his manipulations. The lands, the people, the wars, all bore the mark of the dragon's cunning. Even in his absence, the fear of Glaurung lingered. The memory of his gaze, the power of his mind, and the destruction of his body continued to influence those who faced his progeny. Glaurung was, in essence, the blueprint, the first of his kind, a prototype that defined what dragons would become. Fire, strength, intelligence, manipulation, hypnotic power, these traits became the standard for dragons in Middle-earth. Yet, he was unique. No other dragon combined psychological mastery with brute strength as he did. No other dragon reshaped history simply by being, and his legacy would endure. Morgoth, ever cunning, used Glaurung as a model. The next step, creatures like Ancalagon the Black would refine the design. But Glaurung set the standard. All who came after bore traces of his power, his intellect, his shadow. Even Smaug, centuries later, echoed his traits. Greed, intelligence, hypnotic ability, treasure hoarding, cunning strategy, all were lessons learned from the first dragon. Glaurung was more than a dragon. He was a force of nature, a shadow of intelligence and power, and a reminder of the consequences of unchecked ambition. Morgoth's creation was not merely a weapon, it was a living nightmare, and its effects would reverberate through the ages. The true horror of Glaurung was not just in the fire he breathed or the strength he wielded. It was in his mind, a cunning as sharp as any blade. Túrin's story shows this perfectly. He was brave, skilled, and strong. Yet, the dragon's influence twisted his fate. A single gaze, a few well-chosen words, and the hero of men faltered. The dragon preyed on his deepest fears, his pride, and his anger. Glaurung's control extended beyond the battlefield. He could reach into the hearts and minds of people, shaping choices before they even realized they had one. This was manipulation on a terrifying scale. Niënor, too, fell under his power. He erased her memory, stripping her of identity. Imagine waking up and finding yourself a stranger to your own life, your own name, your own family. This was Glaurung's genius, not simply destruction, but total mental domination. And the ripple effect of his manipulation was massive. Entire events in Middle-earth were changed by his cunning. Allies became enemies, decisions turned into tragedies, and entire cities suffered because of his influence. But Glaurung was not merely a manipulator. He was also a destroyer of armies, a terror on the battlefield. His first full emergence at the Battle of Southern Flame changed warfare forever. Elves and men alike had never faced anything like him. The ground shook with every step. Balrogs marched at his side, and countless orcs followed behind, forming an unstoppable wave of destruction. Every fortress trembled before him. Even the strongest warriors were crushed under his might. His tail smashed through lines of defense. His breath set forests and fields ablaze. The air itself seemed to burn around him, yet, as terrifying as his power was, it was his intellect that truly separated him from the rest of Morgoth's forces. He was not just a beast. He studied, he calculated, he manipulated. Glaurung understood desire, pride, and fear. He could exploit every weakness, physical or emotional. Heroes who thought themselves invincible were reduced to pawns, and still, he was not invincible. Beneath the impenetrable scales lay a single vulnerability, his underbelly. It was the one place where a hero could strike and succeed. This flaw would eventually be his undoing, but only after he had caused immeasurable chaos. The tragedy of the children of Túrin illustrates this perfectly. Túrin's downfall, Niënor's loss, the fall of Morgoth, all orchestrated, manipulated, and exploited by Glaurung. Even after death, his influence continued. He was also the father of dragons. Whether by blood or by title, his offspring carried his legacy forward. The fire drakes of later ages, including Smaug, inherited his traits: intelligence, cunning, hypnotic power, and a love for hoarded treasure. But no dragon that followed could match Glaurung in both psychological and physical terror. He set the standard for all who came after. Even winged dragons like Calagon, who soared above the lands, could not replicate the cunning and manipulative genius of the first dragon. In essence, Glaurung was the ultimate prototype. Morgoth's creation, a perfect combination of strength, firepower, and intellect. He proved that dragons could be more than monsters. They could be warlords, manipulators, and architects of fate. His impact on Middle-earth was immeasurable. Wars were lost because of him, families destroyed, cities burned. He taught fear not through mere size or fire, but through strategy, foresight, and manipulation. Glaurung's death was inevitable, yet even that final act shaped destiny. Túrin's strike into his soft underbelly ended the dragon's reign of terror. But the consequences of his schemes lived on. The tragedies he engineered could not be undone. Morgoth's plan had succeeded in creating more than a monster. He created a weapon that could change minds, crush armies, and orchestrate entire narratives of suffering. Glaurung was both beast and tactician, brute force and mastermind. Even centuries later, dragons like Smaug echoed his legacy. They hoarded treasures, manipulated others, and struck terror into hearts with a mix of fire and intellect. Yet none surpassed the first dragon's genius. Glaurung represents a terrifying truth. Intelligence combined with raw power is far more dangerous than raw power alone. Middle-earth learned this lesson the hard way, and while Ancalagon would eventually eclipse Glaurung in sheer destructive power, no dragon could match the subtlety and cunning of the Golden Dragon. Every legend of dragons in Tolkien's world carries a shadow of Glaurung. Every fire-breathing terror, every cunning adversary, owes a part of their being to him, even in the Third Age when dragons were less central. The echoes of his strategies, his manipulations, and his terrifying intellect could still be felt. Glaurung was more than a creature. He was a force that shaped history. And so, when we ask, how powerful was Glaurung? The answer is simple. He was unparalleled. Not because he was the biggest, not just because he breathed fire, not merely because he crushed men and elves alike, but because he combined physical might with mental domination. He orchestrated events, manipulated minds, and set the stage for tragedies that would echo through the ages. Glaurung was the first, the greatest, the prototype. He was not perfect, but he defined the measure of all dragons that followed. A shadow on Middle-earth, a force of fire and cunning, a living nightmare, and a master of manipulation. The Golden Dragon's tale is a lesson in fear, power, and strategy. It's a story of how intellect, combined with strength, can bend the world to its will. And it's a warning, no matter how brave, how skilled, or how strong, even the greatest heroes can fall if their minds are turned against them. Glaurung's legacy endures not just in dragonkind, but in the stories of Middle-earth itself. A terrifying mind, a crushing force, a manipulator of fate. He was, without question, Morgoth's most cunning creation. The first shadow, the father of dragons, the manipulator of heroes, the Golden Dragon. And even though centuries have passed since he crawled across the lands of Beleriand, his influence remains. In every dragon that follows, in every tale of fire and terror, Glaurung's shadow looms large. No other creature in the First Age combined strength, fire, and cunning in quite the same way. He was unique, formidable, terrifying, the ultimate weapon of Middle-earth's greatest evil, and the standard against which all dragons would be measured. Now, let's look at Glaurung's legacy. He wasn't just a force of destruction. He was the blueprint for dragons that would terrify Middle-earth for ages. Every trait we associate with dragons, intelligence, cunning, hypnotic power, greed, can be traced back to him. Smaug in the Third Age? A shadow of Glaurung. Smaug could fly, yes, but in mind and menace, he carried echoes of the Golden Dragon. Glaurung's influence wasn't limited to the battlefield. His tactics shaped wars, his manipulations altered destinies. Middle-earth itself bore the scars of his mind. Consider the children of Túrin. Glaurung's control over Túrin and Niënor set the stage for one of Tolkien's most tragic tales. A single creature, and yet he shaped the outcomes of entire generations. And yet, even with all this power, he was not omnipotent. He had limits. His underbelly, soft and vulnerable, was the chink in his otherwise impenetrable armor. It was this weakness that allowed Túrin, the cursed hero, to finally strike him down. But death did not erase the impact of Glaurung's actions. The tragedies he orchestrated persisted. The political landscape, alliances, and conflicts of Beleriand remained altered by his cunning. In many ways, Glaurung's reach outlived him. Now, let's dive deeper into his role as the father of dragons. Morgoth didn't stop with a single creation. Glaurung's offspring, or at least his successors in kind, carried his traits forward. Fire-breathing, cunning, intelligent, greedy for treasure, later generations added wings. Evolved for new purposes, but the core, the essence, was Glaurung. He established the standard, the ultimate measure of what a dragon could be. Smaug, the dragon who haunted Erebor centuries later, shows the enduring impact. Intelligent, manipulative, hypnotic, he echoed Glaurung's shadow, showing that Morgoth's first experiment had lasting consequences. But Glaurung was more than a model for later dragons. He was a case study in the danger of intelligence combined with raw physical power. Where brute strength alone could destroy, intellect allowed him to control, manipulate, and dominate. He turned heroes against themselves. He orchestrated tragedies. He reshaped entire regions through fear and cunning. even winged dragons like Ancalagon, while fearsome, did not wield the same psychological terror. Glaurung's power lay in both body and mind, in fire and strategy, in terror and manipulation. Let's return to his battles. During the Dagor Bragollach, his full might was revealed. He led the charge with Balrogs at his side, a tide of orcs behind him. The Noldor, strong and legendary, were scattered. Elves and men alike cowered, crushed beneath his weight and flame. Yet even then, the true horror was his mind. Glaurung's gaze could paralyze a hero. His words could twist intentions. He could bend the will of the strongest, making them doubt themselves, fear themselves, even hate themselves. Túrin's paralysis before Glaurung demonstrates this perfectly. For a moment, the warrior, fearless and skilled, became motionless. One glance, one word, and a hero was immobilized. This was the power of manipulation in its purest, most terrifying form. Then there was Niënor. Memory erased, identity stripped, Glaurung's reach extended beyond mere control. He could rewrite reality for those under his gaze. A mind reshaped by a dragon. A life stolen by the cunning of fire and scale. Through this, Glaurung became more than a monster. He became a legend. A creature that taught Middle-earth the ultimate lesson: fear is most powerful when it comes from within. And what about his influence on history? Glaurung's actions catalyzed wars. They reshaped kingdoms. They dictated the fates of individuals, families, and entire populations, even in death. He continued to affect events. Túrin's final act, killing the dragon, was only possible because of his cunning and his desperation. Yet the tragedies set in motion by Glaurung persisted long after his demise. Dragons of the Second and Third Ages may have hatched from eggs, spreading without Morgoth's direct intervention, but their traits were inherited. Fire-breathing, clever, manipulative, treasure-hoarding, all hallmarks of Glaurung's legacy. And through all this, the moral is clear. Power without intellect can be terrifying, but intellect combined with power can be cataclysmic. Glaurung exemplified this fully. He wasn't just a weapon of Morgoth, he was an agent of chaos, a manipulator of minds, a master of fear. When you hear of dragons in Middle-earth, Smaug, Scatha, and Calagon, remember Glaurung. He was the beginning, the prototype, the father of them all. Every fear, every cunning strategy, every fire-breathing terror owes something to him. And perhaps the most chilling thought, he set the standard for what dragons could be. But he was still just a prototype. Morgoth's later creations, like Ancalagon, would surpass him in size and destruction, but none would match the terrifying combination of mind, will, and physical power that Glaurung possessed. So, next time you imagine a dragon, massive, intelligent, manipulative, think of the Golden Dragon, the first shadow across Middle-earth, the manipulator, the destroyer, the father of dragons, a creature that could bend the mightiest of heroes to his will, crush armies with sheer force, and shape history with cunning and fire. Glaurung's tale is not just one of destruction. It is a story of strategy, psychology, and the terrifying potential of power. He is a reminder that the deadliest monsters are not always those with the sharpest teeth, or the loudest roar, but those who know exactly how to make you fear yourself. The Golden Dragon remains unmatched in mind and might. His story is a cornerstone of Tolkien's legendarium, a warning, a lesson, and an awe-inspiring narrative. In the end, Glaurung was not merely a beast. He was a force of fate itself, a shadow that stretched across the ages, the father of dragons, the first and greatest. And that is the true power of Glaurung.